Penguin Random House Audio presents Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman's OpenAI. This is the author, Karen Howe. To my family, past, present, and future. To the movements around the world who refuse dispossession in the name of abundance. It is said that to explain is to explain away. This maxim is nowhere so well fulfilled as in the area of computer programming, especially in what is called heuristic programming and artificial intelligence. For in those realms, machines are made to behave in wondrous ways, often sufficient to dazzle even the most experienced observer. But once a particular program is unmasked, once its inner workings are explained in language sufficiently plain to induce understanding, its magic crumbles away. It stands revealed as a mere collection of procedures, each quite comprehensible. The observer says to himself, I could have written that. With that thought, he moves the program in question from the shelf marked intelligent to that reserved for curios, fit to be discussed only with people less enlightened than he. Joseph Weizenbaum, MIT professor and inventor of the first chatbot, Eliza, 1966. Successful people create companies. More successful people create countries. The most successful people create religions. I heard this from T. Lu. I'm not sure what the source is. It got me thinking, though. The most successful founders do not set out to create companies. They are on a mission to create something closer to a religion. And at some point, it turns out that forming a company is the easiest way to do so. Sam Altman, 2013. Author's note. This book is based on over 300 interviews with around 260 people and an extensive trove of correspondence and documents. Most of the interviews were conducted for this book. Some were drawn from my last 7 years of reporting on OpenAI, the AI industry, and its global impacts for MIT Technology Review, The Wall Street Journal, and The Atlantic. Over 150 of the interviews were with more than 90 current or former OpenAI executives and employees, and a handful of contractors who had access to detailed documentation of parts of OpenAI's model development practices. Another share of the interviews was with some 40 current and former executives and employees at Microsoft, Anthropic, Meta, Google, DeepMind, and Scale, as well as people close to Sam Altman. Any quoted emails, documents, or Slack messages come from copies or screenshots of those documents and correspondences, or are exactly as they appear in lawsuits. In cases where I do not have a copy, I paraphrase the text, with only one exception. All dialogue is reconstructed from people's memories, from contemporaneous notes, or pulled from an audio recording or transcript. In most cases, I or my fact-checking team asked those recalling quotes to repeat or confirm them again several months apart to test their stability. Every scene, every number, every name and code name, and every technical detail about OpenAI's models, such as the composition of their training data or the number of chips they were trained on, is corroborated by at least 2 people with contemporaneous notes and documentation, or, in a few cases, with other media reporting. The same is true for most every other detail about OpenAI in the book. If I named someone, it does not mean I spoke to them directly. When I reference anyone's thoughts or feelings, it is because they described that thought or feeling either to me, to someone I spoke to, in an email or recording I obtained, or in a public interview. This book is not a corporate book. While it tells the inside story of OpenAI, that story is meant to be a prism through which to see far beyond this one company. It is a profile of a scientific ambition turned into an aggressive, ideological, money-fueled quest, an examination of its multifaceted and expansive footprint, a meditation on power. To that end, in the course of my reporting, I spent significant time embedding with communities on the ground, in countries around the world, to understand their histories, cultures, lives, and experiences, grappling with the visceral impacts of AI. My hope is that their stories shine through in these pages as much as the stories within the walls of one of Silicon Valley's most secretive organizations. I reached out to all of the key figures and companies that are described in this book to seek interviews and comment. OpenAI and Sam Altman chose not to cooperate. Prologue: A Run for the Throne. On Friday, November 17, 2023, around noon Pacific time, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, Silicon Valley's golden boy, avatar of the generative AI revolution, logged on to a Google Meet to see 4 of his 5 board members staring at him. From his video square, board member Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI's chief scientist, was brief. Altman was being fired. The announcement would go out momentarily. Altman was in his room at a luxury hotel in Las Vegas to attend the city's first Formula One race in a generation, a star-studded affair with guests from Rihanna to David Beckham. The trip was a short reprieve in the middle of the punishing travel schedule he had maintained ever since the company released ChatGPT about a year earlier. For a moment, he was too stunned to speak. He looked away as he sought to regain his composure. As the conversation continued, he tried in his characteristic way to smooth things over. "How can I help?" he asked. The board told him to support the interim chief executive they had selected, Mira Murati, who had been serving as his chief technology officer. Altman, still confused and wondering whether this was a bad dream, acquiesced. Minutes later, Sutskever sent another Google Meet link to Greg Brockman, OpenAI's president, and a close ally to Altman, who had been the only board member missing from the previous meeting. Sutskever told Brockman he would no longer be on the board, but would retain his role at the company. The public announcement went up soon thereafter. Mr. Altman's departure follows a deliberative review process by the board, which concluded that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. The board no longer has confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI. On the face of it, OpenAI had been at the height of its power. Ever since the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022, it had become Silicon Valley's most spectacular success story. ChatGPT was the fastest-growing consumer app in history. The startup's valuation was on the kind of meteoric ascent that made investors salivate and top talent clamor to join the rocket ship company. Just weeks before, it had been valued at up to $90 billion as part of a tender offer it was in the middle of finalizing that would allow employees to sell their shares to said eager investors. A few days before, it had held a highly anticipated and highly celebrated event to launch its most aggressive slate of products. Altman was, as far as the public was concerned, the man who had made it all happen. He had spent the spring and summer touring the world, reaching a level of celebrity that was leading the media to compare him to Taylor Swift. He had wowed just about everyone with his unassuming small frame, bold declarations, and apparent sincerity. Before Vegas, he had once again been globetrotting, sitting on a panel at the APEC CEO Summit, delivering lines with his usual dazzling effect. "Why are you devoting your life to this work?" Laureen Powell Jobs, founder and president of the Emerson Collective and Steve Jobs' widow, had asked him. "I think this will be the most transformative and beneficial technology humanity has yet invented," he said. 4 times now in the history of OpenAI, the most recent time was just in the last couple of weeks. I have gotten to be in the room when we sort of pushed the veil of ignorance back and the frontier of discovery forward. And getting to do that is like the professional honor of a lifetime. Shocked employees learned about Altman's firing just as everyone else did. The link to the public announcement zipping from one phone to the next across the company. It was the chasm between the news and Altman's glowing reputation that startled them the most. The company was by now pushing 800 people. These days, employees had fewer opportunities to meet and interact with their CEO in person. But his charming demeanor on global stages was not unlike how he behaved during all-hands meetings, at company functions, and when he wasn't traveling around the office. As the rumor mill kicked into a frenzy, and employees doom-scrolled X, formerly Twitter, for any shreds of information, someone in the office latched on to what they saw as the most logical explanation and shouted, "Altman's running for president!" It created a momentary release of tension before people realized this was not the case, and speculation started anew with fresh intensity and dread. Had Altman done something illegal? Maybe it was related to his sister, employees wondered.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?